Southampton, NY. I'm sorry. Those are the first two words Phil Mickelson should say publicly Sunday morning after a fitful night of sleep. I withdraw. Andrew "Beef" Johnston was right next to Phil Mickelson for the mess on the 13th hole. Let him tell you what happened. In his own words, sometimes in these situations, it's just easier to take the two shots and move on, Phil Mickelson said after he hit a moving ball with his putter to card a 10 on the 13th hole. Zach Johnson said he feels for the Shinnecock Hills membership, as well as spectators at the U.S. Open, who are seeing pure carnage during a tough round 3. Those are the next words Mickelson should say on his way out of the U.S. Open and into a better and brighter tomorrow. Mickelson made a mockery of his sports national championship on his 48th birthday, and he should now do the honorable thing and remove himself from the tournament. He hit his moving ball out of frustration on the 13th green at Shinnecock Hills, and then told a counterfeit tale about his intent. Mickelson said he took a strategic whack at his rolling putt as it headed downhill to accept the two-stroke penalty rather than risk playing the ball conventionally and taking a score more damaging than the 10 he posted on the par 4. This cover-up is always worse than the crime. Mickelson turned the one major championship he's failed to win into a mini-golf misadventure, minus the windmill in clown's mouth. Now it's time for him to pick up his ball and go home. If somebody's offended by that, I apologize to them. But toughen up, because this is not meant that way. It's just simply, I wanted to get onto the next hole and I didn't see that happening at the time. I didn't feel like continuing my display, and I gladly take the two-shot penalty and move on, Mickelson maintained. I don't mean it to be disrespectful. If you're taking it that way, that's not on me. I'm sorry you're taking it that way. It's certainly not meant that way. Sometimes in these situations it's just easier to take the two shots and move on. Actually, sometimes in these situations it's just easier to tell the truth, apologize and withdraw. After finishing up his round of 11 over 81 that left him at 17 over for the tournament, Mickelson spent forever in a scoring room surrounded by reporters waiting outside. If he'd devoted most of that time crafting a story to feed the news media beast, he came up with a doozy. Mickelson emerged to say he was merely using the rules to his advantage. Asked if he was concerned that his standing as a wildly entertaining player might have just taken a lethal strike, Mickelson had the audacity to suggest that those who had a problem with his stunt needed to quit acting like wimps. Phil Mickelson answered all the questions. It doesn't mean the answers were all that satisfying. Dennis Schneidler, USA Today Sports. I don't see how, the five-time major champ said of potential harm to his reputation, and if somebody's offended by that, I apologize to them. But toughen up, because this is not meant that way. It's just simply, I wanted to get onto the next hole and I didn't see that happening at the time, only there was a problem with Lefty's story, a fairly big one. His playing partner, Andrew "Beef" Johnston, said he told Mickelson, sorry, but I can't help but laugh at that. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen, but Johnston also had this to say of his exchange with Mickelson. He said, I don't know what that is. I don't know what score that is, or what happens now, and he started speaking to the rules official. It was one strange moment, the standard-bearer with the group, 19-year-old Smithtown, NY resident Connor Buff, a student at the University of Albany, said he heard Mickelson tell the rules official, whatever I get, I get. Just let me know what it is. No, as Mickelson's Tuesday golfing partner Tom Brady once said, this isn't ISIS. No one's dying. Mickelson's legacy as an all-time great and all-time lover of all things New York doesn't go up in smoke because he lost his cool like an overheated motorist on the Long Island Expressway. But he should have come clean on what was clear to all astonished witnesses. Mickelson has finished second in this championship a record 6 times, 4 times in the New York area. The futile pursuit finally broke him. Lefty was on his way to shooting his worst U.S. Open score in more than a quarter century, and he snapped and did something, Johnston said. You might see it your home course with your mates or something. I think it's just a moment of madness, and one that left the USGA with a tradition like no other, a rules fiasco that swallowed its signature event hole. John Bodenheimer, a USGA suit, explained that Mickelson was assessed a two-stroke penalty under Rule 14-5 for hitting a moving ball. Bodenheimer conceded that had Mickelson used his putter to stop the ball, rather than swat at it, that action might have compelled the governing body to disqualify lefty from the field. But USGA law also says that a serious breach of Rule 1-2, which prohibits a player from taking an action with the intent to influence the movement of a ball in play, may cause its committee to impose a penalty of disqualification. A serious breach is defined as an action that allowed a player to gain a significant advantage, even though he was a million miles out of contention. Mickelson claimed that he hit his moving ball to gain a scoring advantage as he jogged after his almost gone putt-it. Unlucky no. 13, and then hit it before it stopped moving. Veteran golf reporters watching the televised image couldn't believe what they were seeing. Were they watching a tape of a practice round? Was this some kind of practical joke? Mickelson is the Arnold Palmer of his time, a gopher broker who never met a layup he didn't hate. Like Arnie, Phil learned early to bring the crowd into the experience with his style, his eye contact, his head nods and thumbs-ups, and with the time spent signing autographs before and after his rounds. The fans love him for it, too, and always thank him at the U.S. Open like they did Saturday, after Mickelson's meltdown, by continuing to shout and sing "Happy Birthday" to him as he walked the course. But the ever-playful Mickelson took it way too far this time. Maybe he was affected by the rollicking presence of Beef Johnston, golf's burgeoning answer to Charles Barkley. Or maybe Mickelson just forgot for a second that he was playing in the U.S. Open, and not some rowdy, anything-goes pickup game with friends. Whatever. Either way, he embarrassed himself Saturday by pulling a page from the John Daly playbook. If you believe Mickelson, you know that he effectively cheated the game and intentionally violated the spirit of a rule. If you believe your own eyes and ears, you know that Mickelson dishonored the championship that he covets the most. Hitting a moving putt at the U.S. Open en route to shooting an 81. It's like an angry linebacker in the Super Bowl, with his team down 4 touchdowns late in the third quarter, kicking a fumble into the stands rather than recovering it. Mickelson did himself no favors by explaining that he should have called this audible a couple of times at the Masters at the 15th hole. Yeah, that would have gone over well with the Green Jackets. When he was done selling his story to reporters outside the scoring room, Mickelson accommodated an endless line of thrilled autograph seekers, and heard one man invite him to the beach for a beer. Phil always does the right thing for the fans. Now it's time for him to do the right thing for the game by saying he's sorry, saying goodbye, and telling everyone he looks forward to seeing them at Pebble Beach next June.